Square roots and cube roots is the topic of this video. So going back to the very beginning, so I'm going to flip back for just a second in my spiral, way back actually. We made a list of perfect squares and a short list of perfect cubes. So what we're doing now today is we're going to do the opposite, which is a square root. So you may have heard of this before, but here's the information that you need to know. So this symbol right here is called a radical sign, and the radical sign tells us to take the square root of. So take the square root of. So it's not going to say, here, hold on, let me finish writing here. Take the square root of. So it's not going to say that. That's what this symbol means. So this right here is the radical sign. Now, taking the square root of something is the opposite of squaring something. So we're going backwards. So what that means is that our examples, our questions, are going to look something like this. So we'll just go ahead and jump right into our examples. So if we had this written as a question, this is saying the square root of 25. That's how we would say it, the square root of 25. What this means is that I want to know what number did I multiply by itself to get 25. So what's happening is, again, if we look back at our list, we're looking at these numbers. We're going to be taking the square roots of these numbers, and the answers are going to be back over here. So we're going in the opposite order. So if you still have your flashcards, they're still valid. We're just going to go in the opposite direction. So this says, what this means is, so again, this is take the square root of 25. So what that means, what number multiplied by itself equals whatever. So in this case, it's 25. So that's what a square root means. So I'm sure you know that if we multiply 5 by itself, we will get 25. So, what number multiplied by itself equals 25? Well, that's 5. However, don't forget that if we multiplied negative 5 by itself, we would also get 25. So, I'm going to show you a symbol. We could write our answer like this, or this symbol right here says positive or negative 5. This is plus or minus. So this is saying that it can be a positive 5 or it can be a negative 5. And both of those two ways of writing it mean the same thing. And both of them are acceptable answers. All right, so let's try another one. So if we had, for example 2, the square root of 81. All right, now these are your flashcards, but they are your flashcards backwards. So you should be able to recognize these pretty quickly. So this right here is saying take the square root of 81. That means what number multiplied by itself equals 81. And we know that that is 9, but it could also be negative 9. So you can write it like that, or you can write your answer like that. Now, what you're going to find is that most of the time when we are in algebra, we are going to be using the positive value. But it doesn't mean that the negative value isn't an option. And there will be situations where we will use the negative value. But if we were doing a word problem, chances are pretty good we are going to use the positive. But we do need to understand that it is possible to be either one. All right, so let's just try a few more and then we'll look at perfect cubes. So let's say we want the square root of 625. So hopefully you already know, I'm going to talk you through it anyways. This means take the square root of 625. What that tells you to do is to ask yourself what number multiplied by itself equals 625. Now, by now you're understanding that this is not dividing by 2. That would be what number added to itself. We want to know what number multiplied to itself or by itself is equaling to 625. So if you know your flashcards well, then you know that that's 25. But remember, it can be positive 25 or negative 25. Because if we multiply 25 by itself, we get 625. If we multiply negative 25 by itself, we'll still get 625. All right, let's talk about cube roots. Cube roots are similar, except we are going to have something that shows that we don't want the square root of something, we want the cube root. So this is how we write the cube root of a number. So this is going to be the cube root of whatever number is inside. So what that means is that we need to ask ourselves what number was cubed to equal whatever is inside that cube root sign. All right, so if we want to look at an example of this one, let's say that we have the cube root of 125. All right, now this is a little 3. It's not a large 3 that's multiplied outside. This is just a little 3 just in that little hook right there. And that's going to tell us that we want the cube root of 125. So what number was cubed? So what that means is what number did I multiply by itself 3 times to equal 125? So again, if you know your flashcards well, you know that the answer to this is 5. Because 5 times 5 times 5 equals 125. So let's talk for a second. So when we were doing square roots, it was possible for the answer to be a positive or a negative. So let's think for a second. Does that work on cube roots? Is negative 5 times negative 5 times negative 5 equal to positive 125? Well, hopefully the answer to that is no. So when we take the cube root of a number, we are only going to have the positive version of that answer. So in order to get 125, by cubing a number, we would have to cube 5. All right, let's try one more of those, and then I think you'll probably have the hang of this. Because again, these are just your flashcards in a different order. If we asked for the cube root of negative 8, all right, so cube root of negative 8. So what that means is what number multiplied by itself 3 times equals negative 8. So what can we multiply to get negative 8? So first thing you might be thinking 2. And you are correct. 2 times 2 times 2 is going to equal 8. But how are we going to get a negative 8? Well, hopefully you know that when you multiply an odd number of negatives together, your answer will be negative. So negative 2 times negative 2 would be 4, and 4 times negative 2 is negative 8. So it is possible to get a negative answer on a cube root, but that's when you have a negative inside of the cube root. All right, if you need to go back and replay the video or rewind just to catch something, please do, but that covers the topic of square roots and cube roots.